A cup is a variant. Why a cup is a variant? Come on. Ashwati, why a cup is a variant? Talk.
Because its features can vary.
Yeah. Primarily, we have to repeat what I said earlier, because it is one of the countless number of cups. Okay. That is point number one. Point number two, it is a variant because it may vary. If it falls down, it may break into pieces. After 50 years, that cup will not be there. Okay. Now, she said that particular variant has many other variants or sub-variants, SUB, sub-variants, which actually said features. It has a certain, that for which you have to take a given cup. It has a brim, it has a handle, it has a body, it has a base, it is made of a certain material, it has a certain color, it has a certain volume. These are all, every item, everything that you identify is a variant attendant. Get the point? Anything becomes a variant immediately when you focus your attention on that. It can be considered a variant because, like Ashwati mentioned, the brim of a cup that itself can vary from one cup to the other of a different, let us say, of a different design. Because that brimness of the cup is a variant because it is a variable, because it can be varied. Get the point? Because it can be varied. The material is a variant because it can be varied. It may be a kind of certain ceramics of a certain soil. Its color can be varied. Its handle design can be varied. Every item of that cup, if you identify, each one of them is a variant because it can be varied. When the cup designer was sitting in the company, he was trying to make his own unique design or its own unique setting of variants. Otherwise, it will be like some other cup made by some other company. So, if every cup is a variant, what is the invariant of a cup?
That quality that makes it a cup.
To drink from.
Cupness of a cup.
Can you talk about it? Okay, the cupness of a cup is a good dialogue. The quality of a cup. So you have to talk about what kind of a quality defines the cup, the invariant of the cup. In other words, when a cup ceases to be a cup, we can make variations to the cup. You said, we said, okay.
Yes.
We can vary
Yes.
the material, we can vary the what you call color, we can vary the design, we can vary the handle, we can vary the base, we can vary a lot of sub variants of that variant called a cup.
Yes.
When the referent is changed.
Now, who is telling?
Me, sir.
Who? Oh, Tintin, why? What are you talking, Tintin? No, what is the reference? Yeah, when the referent is changed, meaning what? When the cup is changed, right?
When it ceases to function as a cup.
Tintin, you please do not get confused about referent. Referent is a term which we used to refer to anything in this world from the vantage point of language, Tintin. Because what is a language? Any language is nothing but an assemblage of words, okay? Words connected together, you utter a sentence. Sentences connected together, you form a paragraph when you are writing, or sentences connected to form a unit of idea you are communicating to another person. But they are all nothing but every word using words, and every word is a name. Like the word Tintin is to name you, the word chair is to name that thing, the word moon is to name that thing, the word sun is to name to that thing, the word house is to name that thing, the word brick is to name that thing, the word pen is to name that thing. We cannot write with P and P. You need that thing, and that thing is named pen so that human beings can talk about it. And therefore, a pen is a referent of the word pen. That's all. Okay. Now we are going little step deeper orbit. Reference, we are renaming it as variant. Rather, every referent is a variant. Tintin, what is so complex about it, Tintin?
Now I was thinking on my answer and see how else can I answer it differently. What
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right.
what makes a cup
Yeah.
change no
No,
longer a cup?
the question was not what makes a cup change. There is one thing invariant about a cup. What is that? The name cup, CUP, cup remains invariant so long as the reference of cup exists there. You see, every word is an invariant.
The way you use cup also is not changing, no. The tea or water has to go into that empty space only.
That is, but you can change the way you use a cup. You can let's say take some 10 old cups and stick it together to form some artifact, some design.
Yeah,
You
but
can break the
the way
porcelain and put some to use. That will come little later. That is the context of creativity. That will come later. By inducing variation, you create something new. We will come to that, Pavadi.
okay.
So everything is a variant, and there is an invariant also for everything. There is an invariant because when a cup is varied beyond a point, it ceases to be a cup. For example, you increase the volume of the cup to something like 20,000 liters, then it is no more a cup. The way the cup has been conceived, the way the cup has been relatively used. Or you make a miniature cup of some, what you call, 1 square millimeter. Its overall look may resemble that of a cup. But its action, its utility, its work, its function as a cup will no more be applicable. So anyway, though we cannot talk about it, there is an invariantness about a cup because that only, like Minashi said, the quality or the cupness of the cup. That invariant is definitely there. That is why if millions of varied things are heaved in a ground, you will identify a cup if there is one, because the design and the setting of that cup is different from all other designs. So that is the way you have to conceive the concept of invariant. Or at a quick level, if you, every one of you, every one of us is a human being, if you is one of the variants, and every human being varies from another one, therefore again a human being is a variant. If a human being is a variant, is there an invariant in the human being?
Survived.
Now look at the world. There is only one thing that is invariant, I would say. I don't know whether you will identify some other invariant. Out of the man-created things, one thing is very surprisingly invariant. That is language. I mean, words. In any language. For example, in the case of the words in English, so long as English language exists, every word will remain the same since its beginning. The word cup remains the same. The word table remains the same. The word water remains the same. Okay? The word. Because that's why one other reason why language is a feeble, I don't know, non-existent thing. Where does language exist? No, I am changing the question. Where does language exist? Come on. If you understand referent reality perception, if you are capable of let me use the word referent reality perception. If you are able to have referent reality perception, you will get an answer. Where does language exist?
In the mind.
Any other answer? Of course, 100% only in the minds of human beings. You may sometimes say that it is in the printed books. No. Language is only in the mental impression of the human minds. It has no fundamental existence at all. That is the paradox of human beings. It is the non-existent thing that is controlling the world. Like a concept of bloody non-existent God is controlling the world. I am using the word bloody to express my fury. That is the tragedy of human beings. It is the one who takes the sword will be defeated by the sword. The arrogance of the human being should be equally should suffer this problem. At the time of death only they will realize what is bloody reality. That reality has been all the time with them, which they just did not see. Because they were all living in the world of words. Everything has been seen from the angle of the language in the mind. That's why. Everybody will get that ultimate moment of so-called punishment at that time of departure. Whether their head is cut by a single shot or whether the body is cut into 100 pieces and therefore they die. And that I'm very happy that these arrogant human beings all should die like that only. They should all die ignorant, feeling ridiculous at the time of death, feeling a moment of ultimate depression, where everything collapses. At that point is the most critical point. At that critical point, and then പഠിക്കൽ കൊണ്ട് കാലോടയ്ക്കുന്ന ഒരു മലയാളത്തിൽ proverb ഉണ്ട്. Whether they were the presidents of the world or presidents of huge corporation, at that last moment they will have a terrible fall. Finished. That's why we want to touch the genius of you, Tintin. All right. So there must be an invariant also. In other words, where was the beginning of a cup?
In someone's mind.
In the form of an invariant perception. Every cup is an attempt to bring that invariant perception into some manifest variation. That's why it is variation. Every artist is trying to give a shape to that invariant perception. Because that is invariant. That must be invariant. Because it doesn't have a form. Get the point, Nitya?
Yes.
So the beginning of the cup, every variant began with the invariant. From the invariant to several variations. By variation, everything is happening. You're talking. Yesterday we were defining the I is nothing but that which is talking or writing or doing. The I is doing that expression. The I is doing that response. That I don't know why they did not say. They say I is only in the writing and the speaking. I is revealed in the expressions. I drives the behaviors. I is the responses. I drives the behavior. I drives the actions. I drives the relationships. I drive the language. And that nano, that invisible fiber, single fiber of that I, that is invariant, and that invariant is sensing every other variation. Get the point? It is an invariant. That is why it is able to perceive, sense every variation. Every variation of the sense details, every variation of feelings, every variation of knowings, every variation of whatever you are feeling as whatever, is because of that presence of that invariant in you. And when that invariant leaves the body, then that variant disappears. So variant, or now we are putting it in reverse. Invariant, variation, and variant. So try to see what is the invariant of a chair. What is the invariant of a table? What is the invariant of a house? What is the invariant of an idea? And what is that invariant in you? That is an ultimate, just like that I'm quickly jumping. If everything is a variation, or if everything is susceptible, accessible, or vulnerable to variation, why any worry? Worry also is a variation. worried about something 1 month back. Now it is no more a worry. This is Sthita Prajna, Parvati, in that sense. I just use that concept. Like, is that so? The feudal king and battalion comes with a little baby to the Zen master, Zen master, and says, "You have done a great injustice." Oh, that. After 6 months, the real mother of the child says, there's a mistake, and the battalion goes to the monks' monastery and says, "We are sorry, please give the child back." Oh, take it. Unaffected by both. That is called Sthita Prajna. The mind, that ongoing state of awareness or consciousness was achieved relative invariantness of that original invariant in the entity. The original is invariant. Then how can the mind undergoes these many variations? Okay, there is a variation, but it should be brought back instantly. If it can come back, for example, somebody is dead. People cry for months together. Okay, cry for the moment. Okay, finished. After some days, it is gone. And these are all silly examples. So this or variant to variation to invariant. That flow can be applied whenever you are in moments of confusion. Because that state of confusion is a variation that happened. Look at all the realities. Then you will be convinced about the variation of perception. Or an event or an experience or a person, you will more or less quickly grasp the relative, whatever the invariance behind that. Then you will get a quick picture of the possible variations there. Why a certain thing gets varied? For example, look at the origin of a cup. From that invariant perception, someone is giving shape. Like if it is to contain something, then just the body is enough. But then body with what? Can you do it with a simple paper?
No.
Okay, then you devise that kind of a paper. What should be the body? What other variant should be used? Rather, you are applying variation to that. So there's a body, just to the body. Then you apply variation to that. So fix a handle so that it is comfortable to keep it in the hand. If you apply that, so what is very details of nothing? The craftsman applied variation to chosen variants. Fill the cup, what all variations are.
So many. From glass,
Yeah.
steel,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
plastic, wood,
If you have money, you can have a gold cup also.
gold, silver, copper, everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Then what all variations of design possible?
Yeah.
Many again.
Now we are entering into the relatively entering into the possibility of creation, creativity, variation. By applying variation, you walk. By applying variation, you talk. By applying variation on your face, you convey your responses or images, etc. You apply variations on the hand movements. You apply variations on the hand. You play musical instruments. Applying variations, you write. Okay. So all by applying variations on the originally invariant thing. What extent of variations are possible? Now here is again a point, Tindon. To what extent the human being can have variations or varied activities, varied responses, varied learnings, varied activities, varied relationships, varied language capacities. See, variations. What is a song? There are only
Variation.
7 possibles for variation of pitch, which is by our Indian systems. Re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, sa. They are sounded. Or we cannot say So in order to have some kind of an attention, you just attributed some letters, of course, with some other reasons also. With a minimum variation. For example, the one guy is looking for his lover, and for a long time. So, what is a song? An idea which can be talked. There's an idea, an invariant idea that can be talked.
It-
क्या करेगा भाई प्रेमिक को देखता नहीं है उसको खोज के परेशान हो गया there's an invariant perception that he is missing the girl and he has been looking for her and not yet found. That can be expressed in different variants. क्या करेगा भाई प्रेमी को देखता नहीं है applying further variations depending upon the capability of applying variations, see, depending upon the capability of variations. So someone says, क्या करूं, क्या करेगा सजनी बालम तो आया नहीं है. And with that variation, there is some kind of an instinctive feeling of goodness compared to अरे भाई वो लड़की को देखता नहीं है. See, because that variation क्या करूं सजनी बाल आया न बालम cannot be talked that way. क्या करूं सजनी बाल न बालम, it is not possible. Like if you have a golden cup, if you have a well-designed cup, you cannot just like that keep it in on the one dark corner along with the dustbin. If you look at yourself as one of the better variations of human being, you will have a genuine, original self-respect. You don't need anybody else's respect because you will keep yourself in that way. You will treat yourself in that way. You will have your own self-image of that dimension. And a greater variation of musical pitch variation can be applied only to that particular variant. Tin. क्या करेगा भाई वो लड़की को देखता नहीं है. You cannot apply that level of variations of pitch to that sentence. That dimension of what called pleasant, giving a so-called pleasant feeling of variation can be applied only to क्या करूं सजीनी आए न बालम. There also a mind with much less capacity to vary the pitch and melody and tune will say, Kakaru sajini ayana balam khoj rahi hai piya pardesi akhiya. Because that is the possibility of variation. That is the capability of applying variation to that variation of language about an invariant experience of missing the beloved girl. Some other person with a better capability of variation will say, Kakaro sajni ayna balam खोज रही है पिया परदेसी अखिया आए न बालम variation. That itself is the evidence that everybody enjoys that variation, is the evidence that every human being must try to become a lyric and a tune and a music. That is what is genius. If somebody asks you what is the definition of a genius, you say, that is the difference between kya karum wa ladki ko dekha nahi hai to ka karum sajni aaye na balam. That is the difference. You apply that much of variation to music and variation to music, variation to music, and finally you discover the invariant of music. And then you stop there. Similarly, applying variation to you, varied experiences, varied knowledges, varied, what is variation? Flexibility. By applying variation, a maximum variation and variation and variation, finally you will come across the invariant also. And that is what you see everywhere in the nature process. A single seed is, it's a sapling and its evolution, it's branching and branching and branching variation. Another example of genius. Like a simple sapling comes to its full bloom of genius of that tree, a human being comes to the full bloom. Whatever variations are possible, whatever beautiful variations are possible, as much as possible. Or as deep as possible in one or two chosen field. So test your variation capacity. To what depth and to what height you can evolve your capacities, and especially to see the reality perception, referent reality perception. So we talked about referent. Let us say the word cup and the thing cup, or the word chair and the thing chair. And now we are taking the next step. Every referent is a variant. And every variant is susceptible to variation. And every variant has an invariant. That is the reality of every referent. Got it? Tin. That is the preliminary reality of every referent. That it is just one of the variants. It can vary and it has an invariant. Is that clear?
Yes.
Now the next, then there are other little more attributes of every variant that we will reserve for the next session. But right now, any questions?
Sir, can you
Yeah.
please repeat the same? It is one of the variant and it can vary. And what was the third one?
It has an invariant.
Yeah.
But invariant cannot be talked. That's why the invariant of the human entity, that I in you, also cannot be talked. In the previous session, we were trying to give a beating around the bush of indirectly referring to that. Because that invariant, because of the invariantness of that, I mean that what so-called I in you, because it is invariant, it can sense all the variations, whether it is of a body or of the mind or of any other dimension. So we are talking about variation of things only. What about variation of no, we are not coming to variation of the human being, we are now talking about variation of things. It is easy to apply variation on the design of a cup. Is it easy to apply variation on our expressions? Is it easy to apply variations on our ways of responses, conditioned responses? Is it
Yes.
easy to apply variations on our ways of behavior? Is it easy to apply variations or control on our ways of relationship? Is it easy to apply variations on our ways of language? I mean, from towards the better and wonderful language? If it is difficult, why it is difficult? You are talking about so-called behavioral change. Why varying? Why variation? Good variation. Like, for example, I get quickly irritated with what you call irresponsible behavior. To what extent? I am reducing my extent of irritability. for example. Can I vary the way of my language, for example? I'm asking myself. Can I assume the pronunciation of English language in the British way or in the US way? Of course, possible, but it may require
Possible.
some practice. But for example, I consider that it is not that essential. Can I apply variations, positive so-called variations, evolved variations in my approach to, let us say, Mantra Rishi and Amaya Raja Rishi?
Yes.
Now, I'm just asking questions. I want this kind of questions to come out of you also. Can I control some variations which are forced upon me by the relationship of somebody else? Somebody is talking to me nonsense. Should I also talk nonsense back? I am very much forced. I am very much instinctively forced to vary the kind of language and the kind of contents of my language. But I don't do that. Controlling some variations. Allowing some variations, inducing variations, creating variations, at the same time certain variations kept invariant. See? To what extent I can have variations in my ways of behavior? Can my behavior be varied, remote controlled by somebody else's behavior to me? Can I vary my way of doing something?
In certain situations, yes, and certain situations, no.
Well, certain is not clear. For example, you say there are situations where you just cannot control variation.
Correct.
Okay, then don't do that. But if it is possible, if it is required, or if it is feasible, you can try. Why not? That is your
Yeah.
choice. That is your genius choice, depending upon maybe strategic requirements or other considerations, Parvati. Anything you can control, anything you can evolve also. But controlling may be a little bit easy, but evolve. For example, I am playing piano for the last 1 year. But beyond a point, I am not able to vary my control over the keys so that I am able to produce better music, for example. What can be varied? I am not able to identify that, which is more difficult than controlling a variation. For example, someone talks to me nonsense at one point of time, I can just put a stop to my responding in the same way. No doubt it is possible. But one can choose not to do so, that's all. Somebody may be choosing that, that's all. Otherwise, it must be definitely possible. It is easier than allowing greater variation, Pavati.
Yeah, I got it. Yes, it is the choice. Controlling is possible. Yes.
But here we are talking about evolutionary variation. That variation which is required in for creative language, the clear variation for you required to have attention on the referent realities of the language which you are using, as well as talking, as well as reading and listening. The ability to focus attention to completely cover the details of the variance and the possibility of variations and the invariant of every referent. Prasal, every day by this time, maybe Tintin, Meenakshi, Ashwini, Amaya, Naveen, Ramesh, Mandar, Rishika, maybe except Parvati, we are all sleeping. But today we have played a variation. It is also a little tough. Like any invariant, with any invariant, I think there's a natural block, to be evolved into much better and evolved blooming variations, higher order variations. Higher order variations are perceived a little complex and difficult, and I don't know. Whereas negative variations are usually possible. I'm saying for individuals. Negative variations, or to behave badly, to behave very notoriously, it is much easier than behaving in an evolved way. See? It is difficult to learn playing violin or piano or guitar. Variations at that level, it is not easily accessible. By varying sounding, everybody is able to talk. But beyond a point of variation, when you are not able to vary the sound and the pitch to sing a song, so-called whatever we name as song, that's a name we give to certain variations of pitch. Talking, that's all. A certain variation of talking we call singing, that's all. Why that variation is not possible?
Because we have limitations in creativity and
No, that's a
capability.
very look.
And
Look at
capability.
what is the referent of what you are talking.
Capabilities.
No.
Physical, intellectual, mental capabilities and thinking
No.
about
All
new
right.
variations.
The referent of what you said. For example, right now Meenakshi said, because I don't have the capability. That's a sentence.
Yeah.
What is the referent of that sentence? Can you say?
I'll give you my real life example of what I'm doing.
You have to first explain the referent of that. Description of the reference.
Description of the reference. So when I mean capability, I mean different ways of varying what I want to vary. So I have limitations of language, limitations of tune, limitations in musical capability, which prevent me from
But
doing
what
the
is the
kind
referent
of
of limitation?
inability.
What is the referent of inability?
If I try to vary, my vocal cords don't agree with me. It turns out the same way. That is inability.
That is wait. That is a good, reasonably good approximation of the referent of what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm trying it every day and it's not working out for me.
And that is because you are trying it. That is not a good answer. But at this age, after 45 years of never trying that, because sound control is, as I told you, every movement of the body is programmed. You just cannot have any new movement anywhere in the body, including vocal cords. Using the available movement of the vocal cords only, you talk. Using available movements of the vocal cords only, you sing. But that level of available movements of the vocal cords were not tried at a correct age. That's why.
Yeah, true.
At a required time, that's so. That is why.
Okay, so
Because when you want to move your hand, Russell, what is the referent of moving your hand? Or if I ask you, how do you move your hand, will you ever be able to give an answer? No. Because those intentionalities of the body are already programmed as a creature for the cat as well as for the human being. But when they were all evolving, at that time, it was not inducted into that. That's why. When the child was learning that sounding process, the mother or father or somebody went to the child and hummed a tune. That's all. And naturally, like the word Amma is reproduced by the child will naturally, it will reproduce that elements of that humming. And the mother who is musically sensitive could identify the signals of the elements of that tune in that humming. And the mother goes to the child and gives a feedback by the very presence of the mother, some expression of the mother, some response of the mother, some dialogue of the mother. That's all. Thereby that instinctive movement got linkage, that's all. So at this point of time, you are trying to get conscious access into that reflex behaviors. It is a reflex behavior. We call all non-conscious movements of the body reflex movements. I mean programmed movements. Now you cannot get easy access, that's all. But still there is a way. But of course, with limitations. That is not a good example. I just took it because vocal cords are much more innervated with a lot of nerves, so it is very difficult. Because you do not know where to apply pressure. You do not know what to do. For example, in the mind, there is the tune. Am I right?
Yes.
In the mind, that song can be even heard.
True.
But that heard sound, that clear tune in the mind, in the mental impression, again, like a language. The mental impression is there, but the referent cannot be, like as we said the other day. Many people may have some kind of a mental impression about God, but they're not sure what is the referent of that. Similarly, the mental impression about a song is there, but it cannot be translated into the referent of sounding.
Yes.
And nobody is doing consciously. When a singer wants to do it, just what the singer does, it is not possible to consciously vary the pitch and all that. There is an intent. There is a slight intent. And that song in the mind with all the so-called sangadis get automatically translated into the vocal cords. That's all. But greater levels of conceptualization, greater level of understanding, they're all possible. But but today I was a little bit actually disappointed that none of you gave a clear response about what is referent. Even now it is not that crystal clear to you. It has to be crystal clear, so-called crystal clear. What is the referent? And it has to be crystal clear that every referent is a variant. It has to be crystal clear that every variant is susceptible or subject to variation. It has to be crystal clear that every variant has an invariant.
Right, sir.
Whether you identify it or not. These are the fundamentals required for a different orbit of intellectual journey. Otherwise, it is all very peripheral. Otherwise, it is like the mind of any other reasonably educated individual. That is not the intent of this program. Rather, coming back to Tintin, a genius is capable of referent reality perception, Tintin. A genius knows clearly that every referent in the world is a variant. A genius is very clear that every variant is a variant because it is susceptible for vulnerable to variation. A genius is very clear that everything is derived out of an invariant, an invisible, indescribable invariant. Is that clear? That's all.
Clear, sir. Clear.
Sir,
This is by language. You have to translate. This is a language. You have to translate it into the referent of your abilities and competencies and perspectives.
Right, sir.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, Master,
Ah.
I want to take you on this axiom which you mentioned now, which reads as apply several variations so that finally you may come across the invariant.
Yeah.
So I was suddenly reminded of Sarmishta.
Sir, Mr. Sarkar.
Yeah, is that why she stopped dancing?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And the same dialogue has been later made by Ilayaraja also in an interview. When I discover the essence of music, I will stop music.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was immediately reminded of her.
Right.
That's why in Zen, as well as according to reports Buddha, when a lot of other scholars questioned him what is enlightenment, he looked at them and remained silent. And the others interpreted it as that silence is the expression of that enlightenment. In Zen literature, there is a word for that silence. It is called mu, mu, mu in Japanese sound. So, if a Zen master is asked what is the essence of Zen, he would say mu. What is Buddha? He would say mu. Who are you? He will say mu. Did you eat? He will say mu. Because at that level, there is no relevance to my answering to you. You come and ask me, how are you? I say, I am fine. Or how are you? What is the relevance? At your level, you just don't feel like answering to that question. But you do it, of course, strategically. But I am talking. What is there to talk, for example, at a very high level, Minashi? So many talkings are going on. What consequence? What consequence? Virtually no consequence. If 100 talks are done, 1% consequence may be there. That's all. That's why it is told in the no. Silence is the essence of communication. And now we have to be a little more attentive. You listen to someone talking. What he's talking about. It's a small point of reference. And there are 30 dialogues or 30 sentences. Right now, when I said that there are 30 sentences to talk about one dot of experience, what did I say? What is the referent of what I said? No, don't answer, just reflect. Or 30 sentences are told to convey only a moment of reference. You can go back and if you want, you can listen to, of course, edited parts of the video. So many times I have clarified what is referent. But still, whatever I talked as the referent of words did not get clearly impressed, or the referent of there is a referent for every word. Listen carefully. The referent of there is a referent for every word is not clearly perceived by you. Because language has been so deeply ingrained in our minds from childhood onwards. That's why. And language is very powerful and it gives satisfaction. Look at the referent of that sentence. Language gives us a satisfaction. When someone says, I love you, the mental impressions are already registered about love you, gives you the satisfaction. But what is the referent of love? What is the referent of love?